When gardeners hear about wood chips, the reactions are usually mixed. Some folks think they're only good for pathways, others kinda worry they'll steal nitrogen from the soil, and, honestly, many just leave them piled in a forgotten corner because they break down too slowly. But wood, in its shredded or chipped form, is actually one of the most powerful and underused resources for soil building. In the next few minutes, you'll discover how to transform what many people treat as waste into compost, mulch, and even a safe potting mix ingredient. Stick with this, because once you see how versatile shredded wood can be, you'll never look at a tree trimmer's pile the same way again. The first thing to understand is that not all wood materials are equal, and how you use them really depends on their stage of breakdown. Fresh chips straight from a chipper are loaded with carbon and only a little nitrogen from green leaves and bark. If you put these directly into the soil, microbes will use nitrogen from the soil to digest them, leading to the well-known nitrogen tie-up. But that problem disappears if you place wood on the surface as mulch or compost it before use. On the other hand, chips that have aged or partially composted can be incorporated more freely into beds and mixes. This is why the old gardeners never wasted wood. They knew that whether coarse or fine, green or brown, there was always a place for it in the soil system, it just needed to be handled the right way. Wood by itself is just too carbon heavy to make good compost. If you try to compost only chips, they'll sit in a pile for years, breaking down very slowly by fungal action. But when mixed with nitrogen-rich greens such as grass clippings, vegetable scraps, or manure, wood chips become a perfect brown balance in the compost recipe. A good ratio to aim for is about 3 parts fresh green material to 1 part wood chips by volume. For example, if you add 3 wheelbarrows of garden weeds or kitchen scraps, add 1 wheelbarrow of shredded wood on top. This balance gives microbes enough nitrogen to digest the carbon without starving the pile. Keep the heap damp. Wood tends to dry out quickly, so make sure it feels like a wrung-out sponge. One way to speed decomposition is to use shredded branches less than 3 inches thick, known as ramial wood. Because younger wood contains more sugars and nutrients, it breaks down faster than big trunk pieces. If you can shred twigs, leaves, and small branches together, your compost will become rich in fungal networks, creating humus-like material within a year. Gardeners who turn their piles every few weeks may see it break down in as little as 6 months. The most common and practical use of wood chips is as mulch. Spread on the soil surface, they act as a blanket, keeping the soil cool in summer, conserving moisture, and protecting against heavy rain. Over time, fungi colonize the chips, and worms drag bits of decomposed material down into the soil. This is where the so-called nitrogen tie-up is not a concern, because the chips are not mixed directly into the root zone. For vegetable beds, a layer of 2 to 3 inches of aged wood chips works best. Too thin a layer dries out quickly and provides little weed suppression, while a very thick layer may keep the soil too cool in spring. In perennial beds, orchards, or pathways, you can go as deep as 4 to 6 inches. With each season, rake aside what remains, top up with a fresh layer, and return the older material to compost or mix into new mulch. To give a clear example, if you have a 4 by 8 foot raised bed, you would need about 5 to 6 cubic feet of chips to create a 3-inch mulch. That equals roughly 2 wheelbarrow loads. With regular top-ups each year, your soil will grow looser, darker, and full of life. Gardeners often forget that aged wood chips can be screened and used as part of a potting mix. After 2 to 3 years in a heap, wood decomposes into a soft, crumbly material with excellent drainage and moisture-holding ability. This can be sieved to separate the finer particles, which are then blended into seed-starting or potting soil. A practical recipe is to mix 1 part fine aged wood compost with 1 part finished garden compost and 1 part coarse sand or perlite. This creates a potting mix that holds water but does not compact. For seedlings, make sure the wood material is fully broken down and crumbly, not sharp or splintered. Some gardeners also blend in a small amount of seaweed meal or rock dust to balance trace minerals, since wood-based compost is especially high in carbon but may need a boost of micronutrients. So, even without any additives, seedlings grown in sieved, well-aged wood compost often develop strong fibrous roots. You see, this happens because the fungal life associated with wood materials creates a natural structure that encourages root exploration. It's pretty fascinating, isn't it? You know, a common myth is that wood chips, especially pine or conifer, will acidify soil. But that's not really the case. While fresh needles are acidic, once wood decomposes, the pH naturally balances out. Long-term studies show that, after decomposition, pine mulch settles around a near-neutral pH, often between 6 and 7. This means you can safely use chips from almost any source. What matters more is whether the wood has been treated or contaminated, so definitely avoid painted or chemically treated lumber, but fresh arborist chips are safe and honestly pretty abundant. The key to using wood effectively is to treat it as part of a cycle rather than a single-use product. Fresh chips go on pathways where they slowly break down underfoot. A year later, that partially decayed material can be shoveled onto garden beds as mulch. After another season, what remains can be composted, sieved, and worked into a potting mix. At each stage, the wood transforms into something more valuable and nothing is wasted. One practical step is to always keep a pile of wood chips aging in a corner of your garden. Wet it down in dry months, cover it with a tarp if you want faster decomposition, and turn it once or twice a year. After 2 years, you'll have a mound of soft, earthy material ready for beds, pots, or direct soil improvement. Wood chips and shredded branches are not waste. They are long-term investments in soil health. Used in compost, they balance greens and create fungal-rich humus. Spread as mulch, they protect and feed your soil over time. Aged and sieved, they become part of high-quality potting mixes that rival anything you could buy in a bag. The more consistently you bring wood into your garden system, the more resilient and fertile your soil will become. If you found this guide valuable, make sure to subscribe to Soil and Crop Doctor for more proven methods to revive and build soil the right way. Share this with fellow gardeners who are still leaving wood piles unused, and let's bring this forgotten resource back into the center of organic growing.